Chapter 1. Goblins in Brighttown. Brighttown screamed. Little green men with wicked grins and beady red eyes raced through the narrow streets, their jagged blades gleaming in the firelight. They whooped and hollered, toppling carts, tearing through homes, and smashing anything they could get their filthy claws on. Crude weapons, twisted knives, rusty spears, splintered clubs, whirled in the chaos. The air was thick with smoke, fire, and the clamor of terrified villagers fleeing for their lives. The town guard, brave but hopelessly outnumbered, fought back. They were few, the goblins were many, and vicious. And then, cutting through the smoke and panic like a blade through silk, the Red Noir sisterhood arrived. Jarina came first, towering, muscular, wrapped in blackened steel in silent fury. Her long black braid whipped behind her as she swept her poleaxe with the grace of a master and the strength of a warhorse. Each swing cleaved a goblin in two. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Farilith followed with fluid grace, an elf with sharp amber eyes and robes that flowed like flames. His movements were serene, even elegant, until they exploded into violence. A strike to the knee, a kick to the neck. Goblins dropped without understanding what had hit them. His face remained calm, unreadable. And then came Balak Red Noir, tall, pale, and composed, with piercing eyes and an aura that bent the air around her. Her straight black hair framed her sharp features, falling neatly to her shoulders. Black lipstick curled into a cold, confident smirk. She wore all black: robes, gloves, boots, even her jewelry. No color, no mercy. She raised her arms and the earth obeyed. Vines burst from the ground, barbed, writhing, pulsing with her magic. They lashed and coiled around goblins by the dozen, crushing bones and stealing screams. The goblins panicked too late. Her signature spell, Withering Entangle, was a thing of cruel beauty. And then there was Skyme. Just over 3 feet tall, fast, and laughing. She wore tight black leather armor, a matching black leather skirt, and a bandolier strapped across her chest loaded with throwing daggers. Her long hair was jet black, save for a bold red fringe that fell into her bright, mischievous eyes. She grinned like someone playing the world's deadliest game, and winning. Her eyes sparkled with delight as she wove between the chaos, knives flashing like silver teeth. A goblin lunged. She ducked, rolled, and slashed its legs out from under it. "Left knee! Ooh, you'll feel that never!" she squealed, landing a second blade between its ribs. She leapt atop a pile of twitching corpses, her own work, and struck a pose. "That's 13! Who's next?" Another goblin screamed and ran. She chased him too. By the time the sun dipped behind the hills, the goblins were gone. The villagers, stunned, weeping, grateful, rushed to the sisterhood. They offered food, coin, wine, rooms at the inn. The mayor bowed. The children stared. One woman called Balak a saint of the vine. Balak smiled. Jarina said nothing. Farilith nodded, graceful and unreadable. Skyme winked and asked if there was pie. That night, Brighttown celebrated. But while the people sang, the Red Noir sisterhood sat in their private room, sipping wine and trading smirks. Because it had all gone exactly to plan. Balak had enchanted the goblin chief days before, twisting his mind, filling his head with lies and rage and promises. She'd aimed him like a catapult at Brighttown, promised him victory, promised him vengeance. He'd gotten a grave instead. And the sisterhood? They got to be heroes. Skyme leaned back in her stolen chair, pie in one hand, dagger in the other. Best day ever. Chapter 2. Troll Trouble and Twisted Tales. The Red Noir sisterhood left Brighttown on a high note, riding 3 horses gifted to them by grateful townsfolk. Skyme clung happily to Balak's waist, her chin resting on the witch's back, humming a cheerful tune as the horses trotted along the winding road south. Jarina rode behind them, silent as ever, keeping an eye on their rear with disciplined focus. She was always ready for an ambush, her poleaxe secured to her back like an extension of herself. Farilith took the lead, quiet and alert, sipping from a small flask of red tea every so often. His amber eyes scanned the horizon like he was meditating more than scouting. That evening, they made camp beneath the stars. The fire crackled softly. Jarina sat on a stone, meticulously cleaning her weapon with the care of a master craftsman. Farilith knelt near the edge of the camp, eyes closed in meditation, his breath slow and steady. Skyme curled beside Balak near the fire, cheerfully nibbling dried meat and spinning one of her throwing knives on the tip of her finger. "You should have seen that one goblin's face when your vines caught him mid-leap," Skyme giggled. "Like, ah, splorch, priceless." Balak chuckled, swirling her wine in a tin cup. "He wasn't the first idiot to believe lies whispered in the dark. Won't be the last." Skyme grinned, looking up at her with dreamy admiration. "You're amazing. You know that?" "I do," Balak replied, brushing a strand of Skyme's hair aside. A sudden crack in the woods cut through the warmth of the fire. Then came a roar. A massive shape burst from the tree line, a troll, nearly twice the height of a man, covered in thick green-gray hide dotted with jagged bone plates. Its nose was wide and twitching, sniffing for prey. Its mouth opened in a low growl, revealing two tusk-like fangs jutting from its bottom jaw. Its eyes were small, yellow, and full of hunger. Jarina stood immediately, weapon ready. "Incoming." The troll charged. Jarina met it first, her poleaxe slamming into the troll's shoulder. The blow sent it stumbling, but its flesh began to knit back together almost instantly. Farilith dashed in low, striking its knee joint with a rapid, precise jab. The troll roared in pain, swinging its massive arm. Farilith flipped backward, avoiding the worst of the blow. Skyme darted around it, eyes wide with focus, not laughter. She moved fast, slicing at the joints between the troll's bony plates, dodging wild swipes with narrow escapes. Balak raised both hands. "Down!" Vines erupted from beneath the troll, black and barbed. They wrapped around its limbs and neck like hungry snakes. The troll thrashed and howled, but Balak's enchantment burrowed into its mind. Slowly, its struggle slowed and stopped. Its arms hung limp, its eyes glazed over. Balak stepped forward, examining the beast. "Still useful," she murmured. She turned to Farilith. "Where's the next town?" He unrolled the map with practiced fingers. "Walberg, along the main trade road." "Perfect." Balak pointed south. "Run to the next town. Attack, destroy, give us 20 minutes. The troll turned and lumbered off into the night, vanishing into the dark trees. Skyme raised an eyebrow. "So we're doing the hero thing again?" Balak smiled. "Of course." 20 minutes later, Walberg was under siege. The troll smashed its way through the marketplace, tossing carts and scattering guards. Screams rang out as the creature bellowed, its eyes glowing faintly under Balak's spell. And right on time, the Red Noir sisterhood arrived. Jarina struck first, carving into the beast's thigh with her poleaxe. Farilith landed a punishing strike to its side. Skyme danced between falling debris, cutting into its ankles with surgical precision. Balak stepped into the center of the town square, lifted her arms, and whispered a cruel word. Withering vines erupted once more, wrapping the troll tightly and dragging it to the ground. Together they pushed the beast back, out of the city walls. Villagers gathered and watched from a distance as Sisterhood pulled the motionless troll's body into the fields. A fire was lit. Far from the city, smoke curled into the darkening sky. The people of Walberg never saw the troll again. They never questioned the story. They simply celebrated the Sisterhood's arrival with open arms, grateful, amazed, unaware. Gold, wine, food, praise. Another job well done. Skyme toasted the town from a rooftop, 2 mugs in her hands and a smirk on her lips. I love this job. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Past. Many days passed without trouble. The roads were quiet, the sky clear, the air warm. The Sisterhood traveled steadily southward, inching closer to the capital. For a while, everything felt almost peaceful. And then came the ambush. It happened without warning. A blast of chaotic magic tore through the trees and obliterated the lead horse, the one Balak and Skyme were riding. The animal vanished in a spray of blood and ash, flinging both riders to the dirt. From the shadows, a figure lunged. A young woman, her face marked by a jagged scar running from above her right eye down to her cheek. She wore light leather armor that clung to her like a second skin, built for speed. She moved with erratic energy, wielding a long sword in one hand and a dagger in the other. Around her neck gleamed the swirling symbol of the god of chaos. She went straight for Balak. Balak barely rolled aside, vines bursting from the ground to shield her. "Edith, you're still alive? How fascinating." Edith snarled and slashed through the vines. "I know your tricks, witch. It'll take more than roots and lies to stop me today." Jarina was already moving, poleaxe in hand. She intercepted Edith with a wide arc, slicing deep into her back. But Edith didn't fall. She screamed a wild prayer to her god, and the wound closed right before their eyes, leaving only a twisted scar. "Balak's manipulating you," she shouted at the others. "She's been controlling you from the start." Jarina gritted her teeth. "You're still talking." Farileth approached from the side, poised to join the fray, but Edith moved like a storm. With a snarl, she darted back toward Jarina and drove her dagger into a vulnerable gap in her armor, wounding her shoulder. Jarina hissed but held her ground. Skyme stood frozen. She stared at the attacker, at Edith, wide-eyed, her mouth slightly open. She remembered. Chapter 4. Saved by Red Noir. She had been an assassin for hire, drifting from job to job. One day she was approached to eliminate a traveling merchant. Easy money, or so it seemed. But when she struck the carriage on that rainy night, the truth hit her harder than the ambush. The merchant wasn't the target. He was bait. From the carriage burst a squad of killers, mercenaries, thugs, and a spellcaster who blinded her with magic. She fought anyway, blades spinning, breath heaving, but it wasn't enough. "I remember Julius," one of them had snarled. "You slit his throat like it was nothing. He was my brother." Skyme had been seconds from death when salvation came. Balak and Edith had arrived like a storm. Vines burst from the dirt, wrapping around her attackers. Edith screamed prayers to chaos, blades flashing as she tore through them, her face radiant with madness and purpose. "You always have a flair for the dramatic," Balak said with a smirk. "You love it," Edith had replied, slicing a man's throat in a single, clean move. Skyme had stared at them through blood and rain. They had saved her. She'd never questioned her loyalty after that. After that, she had become a part of something. Not long after, they'd found Jarina. She'd been wounded, bloodied, kneeling beside the corpses of 2 dead companions. Nearby, twisted, aberrant monsters lay slain, their bodies torn apart by a brutal last stand. Jarina hadn't begged for help. She just stared as the sisterhood approached. Edith, ever wild, used her divine chaos magic to heal Jarina's wounds. The soldier stood back straight despite her pain. "They were weak," she said coldly, gesturing to the fallen. "I survived." Balak had leaned close to Edith and whispered, "This one has potential." After treating her injuries, Balak extended the invitation, voice like velvet. "You don't have to fight alone anymore. We value strength here, and you clearly have it." Jarina stared at them for a long moment before nodding. "If you prove worthy of leading me, I stay. If not, I'll take your place." Edith had laughed, clapping her hands. "Oh, I like her." They became a unit after that. Jarina silent and strong, Edith wild and chaotic, Balak always watching. But then came the turning point. Skyme remembered waking one night to the sound of shouting, Edith and Balak face to face near the campfire, voices sharp and raw. "You're controlling us!" Edith screamed. "I see it now! My God showed me the truth!" Balak's eyes were calm, almost disappointed. "You're broken, Edith. I didn't make you that way, I just gave you a purpose." They fought, vines and blades. It ended with Edith on the ground, blood pouring down her scarred face, the terrible gash across her eye. Skyme could still see it. Jarina had watched without stepping in. "If she wins, she leads," she said, her tone like iron, unshaken and cold. Balak stood over Edith's twitching form and whispered something Skyme never heard. Then they left her. Months after, Farileth appeared. He had come looking for Balak. He had heard stories of a woman with black vines who struck fear into monsters and men alike. Skyme hadn't liked him at first. He was too calm, too unreadable. He asked to join. Jarina had demanded a test. They sparred for almost 20 minutes. Farileth moved like wind over water, graceful and efficient, but Jarina's strength, precision, and sheer will carried the fight. She beat him, barely. Balak had smiled. Not bad. And just like that, he was part of the sisterhood. Skyme remembered asking, "So now that we have a guy, are we still the sisterhood?" Balak smirked. "Guess we'll have to rebrand." But Farileth shook his head with a rare smile. "No need to change the name. Red Noir Sisterhood sounds good to me." Skyme had laughed. That was the first time she liked him. Skyme blinked. The forest was quiet again. The fire was gone. The memory faded. "Edith is alive," she whispered to herself. Maybe there was a chance she would make peace with Balak and come back to the family, maybe? Chapter 5. The Dungeon and the Amber Lantern. The Red Noir Sisterhood arrived at Silver Hollow, a city nestled between jagged cliffs and dense forest. Silver Hollow was a pristine and orderly city, a near-perfect reflection of the capital's splendor. Its cobbled streets were lined with well-kept houses, and its citizens moved with a sense of ease and contentment. Yet, beneath the polished surface, whispers of trouble lurked. Upon arriving, the sisterhood made their way to the local inn and tavern, a well-kept establishment called the Golden Hearth. Balak, with her natural charisma, led the group inside, where the scent of roasted meats and spiced ale filled the air. With effortless charm, she inquired about local news, drawing out stories from the eager patrons. One tale stood out: the dungeon beneath the ruined temple on the city's outskirts. A terrible creature known as Albcarno the Cruel had made its lair there, terrorizing travelers and caravans. Albcarno was a white-scaled dragon who breathed scorching black fire. But, as it turned out, a band of famous heroes had already gone to face the beast, the Amber Lantern. Rumors spoke of a terrible monster lurking within, one that had already lured countless adventurers to their deaths. A perfect opportunity. "Imagine the prestige," Balak mused as they exited quietly through the tavern's side alley, avoiding the bustling market street. "A town plagued by a monstrous threat, and then we appear, saviors, heroes." Skyme bounced alongside her, grinning. "So we go in, kill the beast, get the glory?" Balak smirked. "Something like that." The descent into the dungeon was marked by the lingering evidence of a brutal struggle. The halls were littered with the corpses of reptilian monstrosities, their grotesque forms twisted and warped, once humanoid, now something else entirely. The stone floors were scorched, clawed, and cracked. Traps had already been triggered, their mechanisms left broken and useless. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. The Amber Lantern had gone in first, cutting through everything in their path. The air was damp, thick with the scent of mildew and decay. Cracked statues lined the entrance, their faces worn and unrecognizable. Balak led the way, her enchanted vines illuminating the path ahead, twisting like searching tendrils. As they approached the heart of the dungeon, the distant sounds of a ferocious battle echoed through the stone corridors, clashing steel, shouts of exertion, and the deep, guttural roar of something massive. Balak raised a hand, signaling for them to halt. "Skyme," she whispered, "go take a look. See what we're dealing with." The little assassin grinned and disappeared into the shadows. Moments later, she returned, eyes gleaming with excitement. "They're fighting a dragon. Big, white-scaled thing. Breathes black fire. The Amber Lantern is barely holding their own. A warrior, a caster, a wizard, and a priestess. Looks like they're all struggling. Should we help?" Balak smirked. "We wait. Then we kill the weakened winner." They remained in the shadows, listening as the battle raged on. The dragon's roars shook the stone walls, followed by the cries of warriors pushing themselves to their limits. Then, finally, silence. Before stepping into the chamber, Balak turned to Jarina, watching her hesitate. "They're exhausted. There's no challenge in striking them down like this. A real fight should test my skill, not be decided before it begins." Balak turned to her, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. "No challenge? Then think of it as a different kind of test, not just of strength, but of cunning. If they had won just a little more cleanly, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They would have struck us down without hesitation. You know it, don't you?" Jarina hesitated. Something about Balak's voice, so smooth, so reasonable, made her objections feel smaller, less important. A challenge wasn't always about a fair fight, was it? The way Balak spoke, her words curling around Jarina's thoughts like an unseen force, made the hesitation feel foolish, unnatural. "This is no different from any other battle," Balak continued, her tone almost soothing now. "They would kill us just the same if they had the chance. Take the power, Jarina. Take it while you can." Jarina exhaled sharply, the weight of hesitation lifting. Without another word, she readied her weapon. Fairleth nodded. "They fought hard. They won't last another battle." Skyme's grin widened. "Then we should help them. Rest." Only then did they step into the chamber. Balak stepped forward with a gracious smile. "Greetings," she said smoothly. "We thought you could use some help, but I see you're already done with the beast." The corpse of a dragon lay sprawled across the chamber, its once magnificent alabaster scales dulled with blood and scorch marks. Standing over the slain dragon were 4 adventurers, the Amber Lantern. Their leader, Amada Ironheart, a heavily armored dwarf, leaned against her great axe, her breathing heavy. Beside her, Marcus, a human rogue in his 20s, wiped the blood from his blade. Clave, a gnome wizard sporting a sharp goatee, adjusted his scorched robes, while Visalia, an elven cleric with tan skin and short hair, knelt beside the dragon, muttering a prayer to her volcano god. Amada Ironheart exhaled heavily, turning to the newcomers. "Thanks, but we've already dealt with the monster," she said, still gripping her axe. Balak offered a pleasant smile. "A shame. We had hoped to assist you, but it seems you've already handled things. Quite the impressive feat." Amada's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping into her exhausted expression. "Who?" Her grip on her axe tightened. "What do you want?" Before she could finish, Balak raised a hand, and the air tensed like a bowstring being pulled taut. Her words were cut short as Jarina surged forward, her poleaxe a blur of deadly precision. The dwarf barely had time to raise her weapon before Jarina's blade struck again and again, her relentless precision and force overwhelming Amada's already dented armor. The dwarf parried one blow, but the next landed true, then another, and another. Jarina's disciplined assault battered through the weakened defenses, forcing Amada to her knees, cutting deep into the flesh beneath. Amada let out a strangled gasp before toppling forward, her great axe clattering to the ground. Vines shot from the ground, ensnaring Marcus the rogue before he could even disappear into the shadows. He thrashed against the thorny vines, his face contorted in pain. "No! You— The vines tightened, their wicked barbs piercing his flesh, drawing rivulets of blood. Within moments he went limp, his lifeless eyes staring upward. Clave, the gnome wizard, stumbled backward, panic in his eyes. "Damn it, I only have weak spells left," he cursed, trying to muster some last defense. Before he could utter another incantation, Fairleth lunged forward, swift as a striking serpent. He caught the gnome in a chokehold, locking his arms around his throat, cutting off his air and making it impossible for him to continue casting. Clave's struggles weakened as the pressure built, his body twitching until finally he slumped unconscious. Visalia the cleric was already on her knees from exhaustion, her body trembling as she clutched her holy symbol. "Volcanus, grant me your strength, a miracle," she begged, her voice trembling. Skyme appeared behind her in a blur, her dagger puncturing the exposed gap between Vesalia's helmet and armor at the base of her skull in a clean, efficient strike. "Surprise!" she giggled, twisting the blade. Vesalia's body jerked once before collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut, her prayer unfinished. The battle was over in seconds. Balak stepped over the corpses, her expression serene. She smirked and whispered to herself, "Heroes, ha." With careful precision, Balak raised her hands, whispering a quiet incantation. The air grew thick with heat as a wave of fire engulfed the corpses, burning them to nothing but ash and embers. No bodies, no evidence, just the legend of their victory. Then, with another flick of her wrist, vines slithered around the massive dragon's neck, severing the head in a wet crunch before dragging it behind them as they made their way back to Silver Hollow. The next morning, Silver Hollow awoke to the tale of the Red Noir Sisterhood's triumph over the dungeon's monstrous threat. They were welcomed as saviors, showered with gold, praise, and admiration. Balak smiled as she drank in the attention, spinning a tale of how the Amber Lantern had tragically perished just before they arrived to face the dragon. One man questioned the story. His doubts were silenced when he mysteriously vanished that night. "Imagine the prestige," she had said. And now, it was theirs. Chapter 6. The Capital's Veil. The Red Noir Sisterhood arrived at the capital of Crown Valley under the cover of early morning. The city gates loomed tall and unyielding, carved with majestic symbols of peace and prosperity. Just another perfect morning in the jewel of the kingdom. And it was perfect. Too perfect. The capital was a marvel. Towers of marble and glass gleamed under the sunlight. Market stalls brimmed with exotic fruits and vibrant fabrics. Children laughed in the streets, their voices unburdened by fear. There were no monsters, no crime. Smiles came easy. Too easy. The sisterhood spent the next 6 days enjoying the city's luxuries. Their coffers swelled with rewards from Silver Hollow, and they lived well. Fine food, warm beds, and the occasional whispered admiration. But something was off. "This place gives me the creeps," Skyme muttered on their second day. "It's too clean. No one's yelling, no one's fighting. It's like a party where everyone forgot what they're celebrating." Despite the overwhelming joy of the populace, the city was heavily guarded. Soldiers patrolled in gleaming armor. Watchtowers were never unmanned. The sisterhood noticed how many of the smiles turned wary when conversations lingered too long. Farileth was particularly thoughtful during those days. On the 6th night, seated on a balcony overlooking the lantern-lit streets, Skyme joined, saying, "It's been 6 days without action and bored to the bones. What are you thinking about?" "I was thinking about us, our quest. I think Balak's methods are questionable," he said, "but someday she might build something real. I believe when she finally rules, we'll be able to help those in need. No masquerades, no hypocrisy, power finally used for truth." Skyme tilted her head. "You're the serious one, huh?" Farileth didn't smile. "I used to be a healer. My old monastic order helped the needy, but only as long as it didn't solve their problems. Suffering kept them funded. I thought I left that behind. Here, I see a different kind of illusion. This city is another facade that must be broken to help those in need for real." Farileth glanced toward the door. "Let's go back inside and join the others for supper," he said. They went back to the inn's hall and joined the others in a lavish banquet. As they ate, the conversation turned reflective. "You know," Skyme said, kicking her legs under the table, "all I really want is to keep going on adventures like this. You know, excitement, danger, maybe a little treasure. As long as I'm with Balak, I'm good." Jarina leaned her poleaxe against the wall. "I want to return to my homeland, defeat my father in single combat, take my place as head of his knightly order, and claim our ancestral weapon." Farileth gave a small nod. "I want to help the unfortunate, build hospitals, schools, monasteries, real places that change lives. I don't care if no one remembers my name as long as it works." All eyes turned to Balak. She reclined with a confident smile, eyes gleaming in the warm light. "And you will. All of you. Skyme, you'll command the borders of my kingdom, exploring ruins, protecting the frontier, with me by your side. Jarina, I'll find you the fiercest sparring partners in the world. We'll hunt the most dangerous monsters, and your legend will grow with every blow. And Farileth, I will make you the steward of compassion. Every copper, every resource, yours to rebuild this world the way it should be. Her voice dropped, soft but commanding. Because when I rule, we all rise. Skyme beamed. You're so cool. Balak raised her glass. To the future, our future. There, they were enjoying their meal when a royal messenger entered, straight-backed and dressed in blue and silver-trimmed robes. He bowed respectfully. The Queen requests your presence at the palace, a private audience, at your earliest convenience. The sisterhood exchanged looks. Balak simply smiled. Well, it seems our reputation has finally caught up. Jarina leaned poleaxe against the wall. Took long enough. And so, the Red Noir sisterhood prepared for their audience with the most powerful woman in the land. Chapter 7. The Throne and the End. The Palace of Crown Valley was a masterpiece of ancient design and impossible longevity. Its ivory walls stretched high above the city like watchful guardians, and the hallways glowed faintly with light from crystal sconces. The sisterhood was escorted in silence, their boots clicking against polished stone. They had left their weapons behind, per the Queen's command. At the end of the grand hall, flanked by 2 unmoving guards in ceremonial armor, sat the Queen of Crown Valley. She was elegant, and though visibly aged, her presence commanded the room. Draped in layered robes of ivory and silver, her skin was wrinkled but regal, her white hair pulled into an intricate crown braid, and her eyes burned with clarity and purpose. She rose slowly to greet them, every movement deliberate, measured, and full of quiet strength. "You've come far," she said, her voice calm and resonant, "and caused more ripples than you know." Balak stepped forward, smiling. "Your performance is quite convincing, I must admit. This kingdom of smiles and sunshine. But it's just that, isn't it? A performance." The Queen nodded almost respectfully. "I never expected to fool someone like you. It is a performance, yes, but a necessary one. Beneath this kingdom lies a force, one that feeds on despair, sorrow, hopelessness. The darker the heart, the stronger it becomes. Here in the capital, and even more so beneath this very palace, its pull is the strongest. When people give in to it, they become monsters." "Then it's good you'll be handing the crown over," Balak replied, her smile sharpening. "I'll deal with it in my own way." The Queen descended the steps slowly. "You enchanted your companions, manipulated them, slain heroes, corrupted minds. I summoned you here not to honor you, but to stop you. I was suspicious of your little group, so I had my agents investigate. A little bird filled in the gaps." "You enchanted us?" asked Farileth. "Don't listen to her, she is trying to trick you," said Balak with a calm voice. From behind the throne a figure stepped forward, fully armored, healed, and ready. Edith Valor. "I'm powerful," the Queen continued, "but not overconfident. That's why I brought my 2 best warriors," she motioned to the elite guards, "and an old friend of yours. Together we will end this." Without warning, the Queen moved, unnaturally fast. A swirl of geometric magic erupted from her hand, a spell of perfect symmetry and light. Balak, startled, raised her hand, summoning a mass of twisting vines in defense. The spell hit her partially, knocking her back. Edith charged, but Jarina and Farileth moved to block her. The elite guards surged forward, halberds raised. Chaos exploded across the throne room. Skyme's eyes lit up. In a blink, she killed one of the guards with a concealed blade. "Oops," she giggled, tossing his halberd to Jarina. "Forgot I wasn't supposed to bring toys." While Jarina and Farileth dueled the remaining guard and Edith, Skyme skipped around and struck down the second elite warrior. Meanwhile, Balak and the Queen launched their full might at each other, geometry and order clashing against chaos and vines. Where the queen summoned radiant walls of force and elegant spears of light, Balak replied with snarling roots, black blossoms, and thorn tendrils. It was beauty versus wildness, control versus will. Then the queen paused mid-duel, casting a second spell, one aimed not at Balak, but at her allies. Light rippled over Farileth, Jarina, and Skyme. Jarina froze. Farileth gasped. "She's right," he said. "We've been enchanted." "It can't be true," Jarina murmured, staggered. "Help me stop her," Farileth said, earnest. Balak's voice sliced through the air. "Jarina." A surge of shadow struck Jarina. She screamed. A spell wrapped her in old pain, her doubts, the deep fear of her father's rejection, the nagging dread that she would never be strong enough to defeat him, and she transformed, her body growing, her features twisting into a monstrous form, still holding a halberd. Farileth faced her. "Jarina, fight it!" he pleaded. Even as Jarina lunged at him with monstrous strength, he held back. Every strike he delivered was precise, controlled, meant to disable, not to kill. He ducked and rolled, delivering blows to her limbs, trying to slow her down, to subdue rather than destroy. His voice trembled with each close exchange. Farileth moved with fluid discipline, his strikes a blur of open palms and precise kicks, each aimed to knock her down or break her stance without inflicting mortal harm. He dodged her halberd swipes narrowly, circling her with the grace of a seasoned monk, but even he was beginning to tire. "Jarina, fight it. You're stronger than this." But Jarina, twisted by Balak's magic and the strange energies the queen had spoken of, ancient forces that fed on despair and hopelessness, showed no hesitation. She fought like a beast unchained, relentless and brutal. Farileth faltered for just a second, unwilling to deliver a killing strike. He looked into the eyes of the monstrous Jarina and thought, hoped. She was still in there somewhere, behind the rage and fear, and that second was his undoing. With a savage roar, Jarina drove her halberd into his side, lifting him off his feet and slamming him to the ground. His eyes widened with shock, then softened, not in fear but sorrow, as the light faded from them. Skyme turned her gaze to Edith. They clashed, steel against steel. "If she wins, we all lose," Edith shouted. "Everyone turns, everyone dies, even the children." Jarina turned on her next. Edith fought bravely, piercing the monster's chest, but was fatally wounded. Skyme, silent and wide-eyed, stepped behind her and drove her dagger into her back. The queen, injured, staggered but kept her stance. "Balak," she said, blood staining her robes. "If I die, the barrier fails. Thousands will perish. I held this kingdom together with will and sacrifice. Without me..." Balak's vines erupted from the royal gardens, smashing through stained glass and wrapping the queen in a final embrace of thorns. One last spell. The queen collapsed. Balak stood gasping, her hair wild, robes torn. Her limbs trembled with exhaustion, every breath ragged, but her eyes gleamed with triumph as she looked around. For a moment, she believed all her enemies, Jarina, Farileth, Edith, even Skyme, were gone, that she stood alone atop a ruined battlefield victorious. She laughed softly to herself. "I won," she whispered. "They're all gone. I did it. I'll rule this kingdom. If they all turn into monsters, so be it. I'll lead them, enthrall them with my magic if I must, or crush them. It doesn't matter." She spun slowly, already imagining herself crowned, the future laid bare before her in thorns and blood. Then she stopped. Skyme was still standing. Balak blinked in disbelief, her moment of glory pierced. Her expression faltered. "They don't matter," she said quickly. "Jarina? Daddy issues? Farileth? A goody two-shoes destined to fall from his high horse. It's just you and me now. I won. I mean," she corrected, her voice faltering. "We won. We did it, Skyme." Skyme stared, horrified. Balak turned to her. Skyme whispered, confused. "They don't matter. It's you and me now." Skyme didn't smile. Her knives hung at her sides. She saw the truth. Edith was right. She loved you, she loved us. All the pain, the betrayal, the corpses of heroes, the children's cries, Edith's screams. Farileth's kindness crushed, Jarina's rage twisted. Balak crawled toward the throne. Skyme stepped forward. "I was the only real friend you had," she said quietly. "But to you, we were just tools, and you broke us all." Balak turned, lips parting. Skyme's dagger pierced her chest. Balak fell into the throne. Skyme stood over her, silent, broken. In a flash, the adventures she once saw as whimsical pranks revealed themselves for what they truly were: horror, pain, suffering, all caused by them. By her. Outside, thunder rolled. The sky darkened. Screams echoed across Crown Valley as the people began to change. The end had begun.